Yeah,
project
I'm not at all
delivery.
surprised. It's very well suited to that type of thing. We'll get on to it because everyone wants to have lunch, I'm sure. And I've just started the recording for others who may come later. Right, Revizto. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Revizto. So I'm guessing that some of us have at least heard of Revizto before. Revizto has been around for some time and has been used on a lot of the projects we've already delivered. And is a requirement on many of the projects going forward. MOTS has quite a pool of licenses. I think we have a few hundred licenses we can allocate out. They are a paid license, so we won't be handing them out to people who don't need them. Best they're in the hands of people who are actually active in the space. So bear that in mind when you are requesting one. It is a piece of installed software, as we've just discussed. It is not currently in our ServiceNow catalog, so getting hold of Revizto, you'd first have to ask one of the Revizto admins, I'm one of them, for a license, at which point you'll be given an email invite to go to the Revizto website and you'll be able to access and download the software. So if you don't have admin rights, then you have to get John or someone else to do that for you and get it installed. When you do have the software installed, you need to be invited onto a project, much the same as sort of most of the software of this type that we use. And when you're on a project, when you fire up the software for the first time or every time, you'll get presented with a list of projects that you're an active member of, and you can filter those recent and active and the rest of it. So for this demo, we're going to be using, it is a bit of a test pilot project I set up for the airport. It is a space I could invite people to if they want to get familiar with the software. You can see here I'm active on Catalina, the CMUA project as well as one which I should get rid of this. That's a dead one. But everything we see and do here is the same across all projects with a few minor differences. So I'm going to pop into DGH. I did open it already before. The first time you open it, of course, it will need to download a whole bunch of content. Be patient with that. From that point on, it only downloads updated data, so it gets much faster to use. But when you've opened a project, you will end up in the project home view. There is a little button down the bottom down here called with a house on it, home viewpoint. If you ever get yourself lost, you can return to that home viewpoint. But this is a 3D space. You can see I'm able to sort of navigate around. There are some options for 3D navigation for people who have skills in various software platforms. If you pop into preferences, you can say that your navigation, if you want to choose between the Revizto default navigation mode, or if you're more familiar with Revit or SketchUp or Navisworks or even gaming, you can flick to those settings. And adjust your sensitivities and things like that. I'd encourage you to sort of look at the preferences just for use. You can't break anything by going in here, but if you are curious that way, go in there, have a look at the settings. It may prove useful to you at some point. Right, we're in the world of Revizto. There are a host of icons across the top and bottom. They all do wonderful things. We'll step through those in turn, but I guess kind of immediately, first thing people want to do is navigate within the space. Now, my default settings are the Revizto settings, and if I left-click my mouse button, it's like a pivot. If I zoom or roll my middle wheel, it's a zoom. And if I hold my right mouse button, it's kind of a more constrained kind of pivot. Slightly easier perhaps to navigate your way around. If I press and hold my middle button, that's kind of a pan type effect. Now that's what we'd call like a free navigation mode. So free navigation is basically go wherever you want. You can see I can pop through walls and nothing, none of the geometry has any impact on what I'm doing. However, if I was to press this little walk, there is, I believe space is the button for that too. You might have noticed there I kind of fell a little bit. I fell to a surface. I fell onto what would Revizto would determine as a closed surface, and now I can use in my mode the WASD gaming type keys, which would be sort of walk forward, and you can see I'm kind of walking slowly. While I'm walking, if I left click my mouse, I can look around as I'm walking, so I can actually walk along and look at the ceiling as I go. It's all very nice. And I can step sideways. It's all quite slow in this mode. You can speed things up by pressing the shift key at the same time, at which point your walk becomes a bit of a jog. But again, you can look around as you're walking like that. And because we are in this mode, I'm going to hurry things up a bit. If I tried to walk into a wall, it should say donk, and I'm bumping into a wall. So it recognizes sort of objects as things that you can't walk through. Generally speaking, doors are, for some reason my software seems to have slowed down and stopped. This is not uncommon. What's happening here? I seem to have stalled in reverse. No, I'm back again. Doors generally will let you through. For some reason, I'm going to have to go to that walk mode. Doors and windows, things that openings, of course, you can get through to walk yourself through rooms and the likes. But sort of that walking around mode may be useful to people if you just want to get a general sense of feel for the model that you're living in. But there are better and other and much better ways of getting around the model if you were to need them. We'll get into those right now. The very first thing we'll go through, actually, I'll take one quick step back. Everything we see here in the Revizto space has come from a CAD application. Within your CAD authoring package, Revit, AutoCAD, those types of things, there are plugins that allow us to upload the content to Revizto. That's done on a sort of a cycled basis. Weekly, generally speaking, is sufficient. It depends on your project. But everything we see here comes from the CAD applications. So one person in your team will be sort of responsible for getting this content up to date. It is not live in any sense. Something done half an hour ago in the model is not going to appear here. It's a scheduled publish. So expect things to be slightly out of date on that basis. And when you've got a bunch of models feeding into this space, we'll just quickly look at this links button here. You may actually get presented with the screen when you open up the project for the first time. This is actually a list of every model that's contributing to this particular set of models we're looking at. There's a lot. It's the airport project. There's a lot of content going on here. But depending on your knowledge of the project, you could actually choose to unload some of those model files if they are not relevant to what you're doing. And that's a personal basis. It's not going to affect everyone in the project, just you. So you can sort of cull the set a little bit if you're finding that things are a bit slow for you. Right. When you have all these models in place, there's lots of places to go and see. You should be working with viewpoints. Now, viewpoints are things that we can create ourselves. You can see there's a little icon down the bottom down here called Create Viewpoint. And wherever we are, we can create a viewpoint for that place, and then we can name it. And we can actually put them into folders and the likes. So you can set up sort of viewpoints of places of interest that you might want to revisit. And for this little demo, we're actually going to go to a project that we're currently running, the Northern Comms Room. Some of us will be familiar with it. And if I was to click on that Northern Comms Room viewpoint, it would take us straight there. So this is now sort of gone off away from the rest of the project, and we can close the viewpoints thing there. There is actually a way of seeing everything in the project. I believe this one here, if we said go to center, you'd see kind of be a bit laggy. Okay, that was a good example of what not to see. Oh, no, here we are. This actually takes us to the center of all of the stuff in that world, and we can see just how much is going on in this model. There's actually a huge model, and Revizto is dealing with that amount of stuff quite well. This has actually got quite an efficient 3D engine. So the size of the project shouldn't be a big factor with what you're doing. Let's pop back to the Northern Comms Room. straight there. And we can see, it's much smaller. It's much more reactive. We can see, we've got sort of textures and things in that model. It's actually quite a realistic space we can deal with. And if we pop over to our little building up here, we can see, hey, we've got a nice little building. We can have a bit of a look at this and a bit of an understanding of our current state of design. If we were to want to investigate our little world, there's a bunch of tools, again, along the top here that can assist us with this. Probably the most useful to most people would be the sectioning tool. Right, let me, oh dear, I'm a bit laggy here. I think it's the presentation thing that's causing this. I'm going to clear the section. I'm going to make a new plane or a new box. I'll make a new plane. So we've got planes and boxes. Planes are probably the most useful to most people, and it's all driven by this little icon here. This little icon, if we grab the bottom triangle, you can see it's snapping to faces. And if I said I want to cut a section at about this plane, boom, I've cut a section of that plane. And I can adjust the height of that by simply dragging the top of it, and we can see quite quickly how effective that is in dealing with those sections. We can pick it up at any point and snap to the wall and do the same thing, push and pull. Quite easy. Boxes work in much the same way. We can grab the box and pull those planes out. For most people who've used sectioning tools before, this should be quite familiar territory. And we can clear that off if we want to go back to where we are. So sectioning is definitely useful for interrogating your model, but there are even more and better ways of doing that. If we wanted to, say, go to a known location in the model, there are a couple of different ways we can do that. We have a little map here, which currently, because our view is set to that area, we could actually say, I want to go, I'm going to double click over here, and boom, I'm over there. Very quick way of navigating around a large site. If we were to go back to the larger part of that project, where that map gets very big, it's a very quick way of sort of jumping between, jumping across large portions of the site. So definitely the navigation map is one way of getting yourself around. Double click, there we are. The next way you might want to navigate around is via rooms. Now, good projects will have architectural room definitions in them, and they all get exported off to the project. I know, for example, that in this particular project, we have the AIL cage and the airlock as defined rooms. And if I was to click on that cage, I'd go straight into the cage room. So using rooms is also another very quick way of navigating to a space, and you can jump around between those pretty quickly, all very useful. But there are better ways of doing that. I'll keep saying that for a while. Let me just, while we're here, of course, we're in the 3D world. There is a 2D world to Revizto as well. And the 2D world also offers us very nice ways of navigating around the space. This relies on people publishing 2D content to the project. So, depending on your project, you may have a different look and feel here, but 2D, I'm going to pop back to this list. These are 2D files, sheets, views, you want to call them, that have been published from these various files. And I know, for example, in our Northern Comms building, I've published a set of documents, a set of two-dimensional sheets. And if I was to look at, for example, the sectional detail, plan details, for example, this is a 2D sheet that it comes straight from our Revit model, and we can see it has a number of little icons on it. One of the things we might notice is this section, it's got these blue pop-up icons. It understands the link between that section and the corresponding section on a different sheet. So it's taken us straight to that view with that other section. And if I was to, I'm going to pop back to that view. This other icon we have here, the little green house, if I click on that, it takes us straight to that area with the sheet overlaid on it. So all of a sudden we're getting 2D kind of detailed context with the 3D model, and we're able to pull the section up and down, and the 2D detail goes with us. So it's all very useful when we've got a detail that we want to understand better in the model and see which perhaps of those elements are two-dimensional annotations, like lines drawn on the drawing as opposed to model content. We can sort of pick that apart and interrogate things a bit more. So they're very useful. The 2D the 2D jumps that we can do. So 2D here, we'll go back to our library. Perhaps we want to go to the plan view itself. Here we go. We can click on that and it'll take us straight through to the view with everything overlaid. Very handy. Or we can, someone's waiting in the lobby. Hamish. Hello,
Hello,
Hamish.
mate.
How are you there?
All good. That's tricks.
Catching up. We're getting a prequel to the Kiwi Rail presentation, are you?
Yeah. Well, I better learn what Revizto is all about and how to do it, and no better person than the master, mate.
You better do.
All right, Chris, we're finished now. We can go, can we?
Okay, well, not for Hamish's benefit, we'll just keep going. But here we are. We'll pop back into that 2D world. So here we are. We've got some 2D sheets. We've got all these different details and things we can go to. We'll pop into that sheet. This is just for Hamish, repeating ourselves. A bunch of icons here that we can click on to either jump to the section in the 2D sheet world, take us straight there. Once we're in a view that we want to perhaps interrogate against the 3D model, we can click on the icon of that, and it will create for us a section in this case with that projected 2D sheet on it, which we can then push and pull and get a better understanding of why we're seeing this stuff on the sheet and where it is in relation to the model. Once we've kind of interrogated things, we may want to do more stuff with this. We'll circle back to what I'm talking about in a second. But if we want to close it all out, we can cut the section and we're back to where we are. So that's kind of the 2D, 3D interface. So you can see there's lots of different ways of getting into the model, lots of different ways you can get to locations of interest and things that you might want to interrogate. So yeah, it's all about viewpoints, the map, or rooms. Hamish will have to give you a second go at this later, or your sections. So that's kind of general type of navigation type stuff. Once we're in the model, we may wish to then interrogate things a little more. So let's again pop up a section. We'll clear that box and make a plane instead. We're going to pop that plane on there. Right, so what do we have and what are we looking at? So here we are. We want to, we're going to keep that section alive. We want to now start interrogating things. So I can click on an object, and because this has come from a BIM model, that object obviously has properties. Properties is one of the icons we have up here. If I enable the properties, we can see all of the properties associated with that element. Item, for example, we can see names and the likes. We can see phasing, constraints, geometry, all of the good stuff that we may wish to interrogate. We can pull up from properties. Properties allows us to find things because we can find against properties. And if we were to look, say, we're going to look at the object tree, we can say in that MEP model, there are floor levels. On those floor levels, we have elements. Those elements have all the properties. Anyone who understands, object structures of data within BIM models will recognize this. But we can see all of that stuff as they're available to us. And if we looked at that object tree, we want to use those properties to find stuff. Let's go and find a few things. We're going to use some conditions to search against. So I'm going to go through and all of that stuff that we've got, we can filter against. Revit type is one I use quite often. I'm going to search against the category of, for example, what do we want? Furniture, landings, level, lighting fixtures. Okay, we're going to search everything. We've got 2,112 objects that we could search against. And since we've selected all of those, I can right click and I can say isolate. And straight away, I can see in that view I had 2 lighting fixtures, and I can look at those individually as we go. So searching against elements, right-clicking against them, and either hiding, isolating, or show the properties. It's lots of different things that we can find or do with objects once we've found them. I'm going to show everything because we want to see everything. So the properties, the object tree, and the find objects are a very good way of pulling up data and looking for stuff.
And Chris, when you go into properties, can you add asset information into the properties as well?
Can you add it?
Yeah, or so you've got their info. I suppose it's basically the same thing, isn't it? Asset information and properties is the same in level of information.
You should have the property fields in your BIM authoring platform when you publish to Revizto. So sorry, that was Hamish, wasn't it?
Yep.
Yeah. So you missed the part. So Revizto gets its data from CAD modeling applications, Revit, AutoCAD, etc., and all of the data that is in those models gets published to this space, and it's stuff that we can search against. We can, I believe, add fields to elements in Revizto, but you would have to start questioning why you're doing that, because where are they going to go? If this was the client's end user tool for holding that asset data, then yes, you could start populating stuff into this model space. But if not, those custom properties, those things we add in Revizto, are only going to live in Revizto. They're not going to go anywhere else. So if you are wanting to add properties to the models, that happens in the model authoring platform, your AutoCADs, your Revits, etc. And then wherever it goes from there, that model data goes with it.
Yeah. So if you don't see it in here, we need to go back to the the mother software that created
Absolutely.
and add it.
Yeah.
Okay.
But you could certainly use that those search tools to look for those properties to see if they have been created and or populated.
Yeah.
So you could search for things against that. Right. So there we go. We've got sectioning, we've got searching. We want to do a few measurements since we're here. There is, of course, I'm going to close that properties box. There is quite a nice measuring tool. Measuring, you've got options here for units. Probably best to keep away from the imperials. But there's a very short list of types of measurements we can do. If we hover, a laser ranger. Laser ranger is basically firing a laser beam around the place. Wherever I drop it, it's going to bounce off 2 adjacent surfaces, and it's going to give me a measurement. Quite handy, fairly rough, but quite handy. I'm just grabbing one of those icons at the end. You can see whatever it hits, it hits. So a very fast way of measuring between things. We could be a bit more selective, and we can bring up a snapping tool. Here now we're able to grab one of those icons and say, actually, I'm going to take it from the end of that door frame to the nipple on that bottle. And I can get a nice, good measurement there. Minimum distances, a very handy tool. I now pick that CCTV camera and the floor, and it tells me the minimum distance. So it recognizes the tangent surface down there and gives me that minimum distance. Oh, I'm into a second mode of I've gone up and selected 2 things here. That's getting crazy on me. I get away from that. The elevation tool is quite handy if you just want. Sorry, let me just escape from that. I'm going to pop back to measure. The elevation tool is a single icon that if I drop on anything, it just gives me a Z datum. Quite handy when you've got sort of interesting topo. You can see it's picking up the different contours and things as we go. So quite handy for getting your Z plane. And then there's an angular measurement as well, which can be quite useful for picking up pipe slopes and the things. You just need to drag it onto a surface. There we go. We've got a 7% fall on that little ramp to the front door. So quite useful. And I think you've got percentages and ratios and degrees and things on that tool there. So quite handy for picking up your slopes on things. So measuring is a fairly straightforward task. No one should have any problems with that. Okay, so we've navigated, we've sectioned, we've interrogated data. We've played with a bit of 2D stuff. We've done a few measurements. We need to communicate some of this stuff out to our team. Issue tracker is kind of where all that happens. And we can see already in this project there are a number of tracked issues, quite a few in fact. I'm not going to explore too many of these. I know that these have actually been populated from Navisworks clash detection. So most of us would have seen this happen on some of the projects where Revizto is live already. We can set up clash detection tests in Navisworks and push all of those results out to Revizto, and every clash detection element that we've seen in Navisworks is available here. What the hell, let's go for it. Let's pop that one open. Here we go. Anyone who's ever seen Navisworks would kind of recognize this little red and green sort of clashy thing. This is a typical sort of snapshot of the clashed elements. And we can see that we've got a couple of slightly different icons here. This is like a markup view. This is a snapshot of the clashed elements. We can see in this property here thing here that there are actually 3 elements involved, and we can pop that open and see it's actually a cable tray, some fittings and another cable tray. I'm going to pop that back up, and this view has changed all of a sudden because I've gone away from that little snapshot view. I've gone into the 3D view of that, and now I can, badly, I'm going to stop doing that. No, I'm not going to do that at all because I've lost myself. You should be able to navigate to those locations and see the elements involved. I think there's been a change in the models, and those clashed elements have now been resolved, so we're not going to see them anymore. Let's go to this one instead, because I know that was one that I marked up in the enabling package, which some of you might recognize. So here we are. Here is an issue that was created against an element which has a 2D overlay on the 3D world, telling us to check the position of the CCTV camera. Now, how do I know that that's happening there? I'm going to bring up the information on that. All of these little things I've just expanded here relate to issues. So we can filter against issues by doing either current, closed, reported by me, watched by me, or my open issues. These are based on assignment. So when people get assigned an issue to follow, you may be able to find the issues based on these filters. We can create custom filters. Custom filters can be by all types of things. We can assign these things called stamps, which we'll get into in a second. Deadlines are associated with things. We can see this panel down here. We can assign things. We can add watches. We can set deadlines. We can put statuses on things. We can add titles to things. So all of these properties that are associated with an issue are things that we can search against. So quite useful. And if I was to look at a level, I can say I want to look at all issues that are associated with the ITB level 1, and that would limit the list of things I was looking at. So filters on issues are very useful. I'm going to close the filters. Oh, it sounded like someone was. No, there was a bit of noise there.
Oops, I've done that by mistake. Sorry, Chris.
Okay, and I'm going to collapse that pane down. I'm going to pop back to our little world again of where we were. I'm going to just get out of my section, and I'm going to, I've lost myself, 3D world. I'm going to pop back to my Northern Comms building, and we're going to look at this again because it's our little demo space. So we want to perhaps create an issue that we are seeing or wanting to deal with. So I'm going to create a section. I'm going to drop the section on there. I'm going to pop it. Actually, I'm going to create the section this way. Boom, because I know I can see something in here which may be an issue. Here we are. So I'm going to keep that section alive. I'm going to zoom in. This CCTV camera here looks a bit low, perhaps. Talking through this with the project team the other day, we've got some access issues around these fan coils. Certainly the cable tray is getting in the way. There's all types of things going on here that might need to be reviewed. So let's create an issue on this and get some data behind it. So how do we do that? We come up to here and we have create a new issue. I'm going to create an issue. It's going to, first of all, so tell me to make my view appropriate. So I could do some zooming and I can take a photo if I want, or add some images from background files that I want. But I'm going to keep it as the default. I'm going to just go done. And now straight away, I'm going to say, what is this issue? I'm going to edit the title and I'm going to say, check coordination of elements here. Oh, check. There you go. It's got a spell checker on it. That's handy. Check that. I'm going to set a deadline for tomorrow. I'm going to give it a, it's a fairly major thing. Oh, my mouse is getting a bit laggy, so I'm going to call it a major issue. I'm going to assign that. I can, if there are people in the project with rights, sorry, Anna's the only person in this project currently apart from myself, so I could only assign it to her, so I won't. But you get the idea. You get a list of people you can assign the issue to, and I can start adding tags, which might be key field type things. Tags need to be defined in the project, and I haven't got any of those here. But we could set up tags for services type. It might be a service element, a comms element, a structure element, etc. We can tag things with key fields, and once we've done that, that issue is created. And the person notified, the assignee would receive a notification via email. You might find yourself getting bombed with those notifications in your projects. You can reduce the frequency of those email deliveries to as they happen live, anywhere up to I think fortnightly, I think is the least frequent notification cycle you can get. That's all done in your preferences up here. But you'll get an email notification. It will give you, amongst other things, the issue ID number, a hyperlink to it, and all of the sort of the properties and things that have been set against that issue. So a very good way of tracking things. And once you've got, once you know you're in a project with issues that you're using, you would simply come up to the filters, and you would filter them off by assignee or issued to me, the types of filters we're looking at there before, the preset filters perhaps, watched by me, my open issues, and you'd get a list of issues for you to go through and check. And once you're in that world, you can start adding commentary to people. If the status here, if you think you've solved that and you want to report that to people, you can say the status has been solved, and you could that would close the issue off, and that's another filter that can be set to reduce the amount of things that you're looking at. So issue tracking is one way of doing it. You can then bump off reports based on all those issues. We won't look at that just yet because that's some features I haven't enabled in this project. But we can do issue tracking, reporting against key fields, against key people. All of the types of parameters we were looking at here, we can filter those and generate reports that we can circulate around to the team, and sort of check the status and number of things that are being dealt with at any point of the project. Issues. Free field text markups and the likes, we can, as we go, as we're cycling around the model, we can start throwing things called stamps at it. Stamps are things that, again, get defined. I haven't set them up here, but stamps are things that we would define in a project, again, normally around discipline type things. So you might throw a stamp. We'll check the demo stamps in. There we go. Here we go. This is record an electrical issue, and the stamps would have meaning. We'll just put a stamp on here, and then we've got stamps. Stamps are other things that we can go through and track against. We can search against stamps. They have the same types of fields and assignments and things as issues, but you don't get notifications in your inbox for stamps. So it's quite a nice, quick way of just yourself setting up things to watch, setting up things that other people might want to search for and look for, but not necessarily get bugged about and tracked against. So Stamp's quite nice. We can also do on-screen markups. For some reason, I'm just not seeing my on-screen markup tools here. Why am I not seeing my on-screen markup tools? I'm not sure why I'm not seeing that. I should be able to. I should be able to do that. There are on-screen markup tools. I seem to have lost them here a little bit. But if anyone who's worked in BIM 360 or other sort of markup type platforms, you get the ability to do on-screen markups. Why can I not see that? This is embarrassing. What do we got? I should be able to see that easily. I'll come back to you on that if I can recall why I'm not able to see that.
Chris, random question. Can we change the color of like the floor and the walls just so it sticks out more if somebody's got a particular reversion to light gray and gray?
Absolutely. You certainly can. You shouldn't have to, but you certainly can. That's done on what we're looking at here with these appearance profilers and appearance templates. They all work off of the back of things like finding objects and search sets. Since I've lost my on-screen markup, I might as well show you that. So if we go back to finding things, let's go back and say we're going to find all security, because I believe that CCTV camera is a security device. So we are, oops, I've got two categories selected there. I'm going to just do that. So I'm going to find all of them. And we can see it's picked up the other camera over here and even the access control on the door. So we've got security items selected. Once we've got find objects, we can actually then create, we can save a new search set. So we're going to call that security devices. And we can create folders for such search sets. Here we go. So if we looked at our search sets here, now we've got search sets. Once we've got search sets, we can go off and we can say, I want to create based on that selection. I'm going to color them to be yellow. And we can apply, we can save and update that. And if we, let's just do in the appearance profiler, if we apply it, not sure why that's not popping up. Oh, here we go. We then can generate we should be able to do that, reapply. Why is that not happening? Selection. Come on, reapply. It should be coloring them in. It normally works. We'll have to try that again at some point. All right. Security devices, reapply. Okay, it does work. I'm having a bad day, but that's the idea. So you create search sets to look for things. From the search sets, you can create an appearance profiler for doing coloring. Maybe we just try it again and apply. No, it's not going to do it. It does work. I've just done something wrong. That is the general idea of how it works, though. I have got it working in other projects. It's just not working here for some reason. But yeah, certainly you can do. And if you wanted to if you want to do that yourself, I would recommend that you create your own folder full of my searches. And from that point, you can drag things into those folders. You can share those amongst your peers if you want other people to make use of them. And then you can create your own parents' profiles based on that. Now, why is it saying that there are no items found? Selection, clear all. Let's try that again. We're going to do a search set. Here we go. My searches, my security devices, select. I'm going to color them orange. Okay, and I'm going to apply that, and then now, hurrah, they're orange. There you go. So a couple of steps involved, but once you've done it, those rules stay in the project, and you can come back and revisit them at any time. There are different ways of dealing with those. If you want those settings to be applicable to everyone in every view everywhere in the project, that's obviously quite a big call, but you can actually make those apply. I think it's part of your templates. You can set those templates up so they become part of the home view settings, and so therefore everyone gets your appearance overrides. Otherwise, they're just things that you set up for you, and you run them when you want, but everyone has their own set of them, and they can color things in or hide things as they want.
Okay, well that's cool. Is there a kind of a rule book for coloring? Is mechanical pink and electrical orange and CCTV purple, for argument's sake?
Certainly no rule book as such. I mean, that really comes down to the project setup and understanding. MOTS certainly have their own standards around coloring, the types of things that we would know and understand by looking at our drawings. And they, well, depending on how the geometry gets into Revizto, you may or may not get those settings in your project space. So sometimes you may actually need to set these appearance profile overrides up for the project. But if you do it the normal ways, then all of the colors that we have in our exports from Revit tend to come through into the Revizto space. So it's quite familiar territory for those who already operate in the Revit space or already look at our drawings. Those settings should be there for them. Quite easy stuff. I'm going to get away from the section here again. So there are other quite nice tools if you want to sort of play with them a little bit. There are ways of, for example, recording videos. You can set up and record yourself talking through as you go. I believe this is actually recording already. If I was to have a bit of a walk around and crash into things and make everyone sick doing all of this, and oh no, here we go. We'll go for a walkie through here and maybe demo something, and we could add a whole bunch of commentary to it as we went and save that, and then would get under the recordings area. We could go back at any time and play that through. Probably hear me yakking away in the background, but you can set up some pretty quick and easy sort of videos if you wanted to do a quick demo to someone that you could leave in the project for them to come back and revisit later. Quite an easy way of doing that. That's kind of the types of things that most of the people on this call would want to do. Beyond the kind of the issue tracking and reporting features, there are lots of things out there which are kind of more top end, which probably most people wouldn't want to visit. That's kind of, I guess, about where most of you would want to be for setting up projects and navigating your way through. I'm just going to go off and see why I cannot find that stem. Oh, sorry. When you have, there you go, I found it. Delete that. When you are in that issue mode is when you can start doing markups. So you can actually, as you're creating an issue, you can do things like on-screen markups and pointing at things and the like. So when you create a markup or an issue rather that you want to convey to someone, you get the chance to actually go through and add a whole bunch of text and stuff to make your issue a little more relevant perhaps to them, and all of that markup gets saved with the issue so that when the person gets notified, they're able to see what you're talking about rather than just a few comments that you provided in the properties dialogues over here. So all quite useful in conveying the problem.
So Chris, how do you get rid of, all the issues are open at the moment, so closing them, someone would have to go into Revit to adjust something, and then you just how do these physically, so it's two systems. You can't, obviously, we can close them in Revizto once they've been done under the mother software. So how would you close it? You just physically close them with, is there a button you push, or how do you do that?
Depends on the issue. So the clash detection issues, all of those are synchronized between Navisworks and Revizto. So if Navisworks finds that clash has been resolved using its tools that it uses, if the two objects no longer intersect or they don't meet the criteria, that synchronization will remove the issue from the space.
Yep.
It does.
Yep.
Otherwise, you have the ability to come and say closed up here.
Right.
And all of those, I mean, you should get used to using the filters. Certainly you can search against closed issues, but obviously you really be wanting to look for open issues, or other statuses, perhaps solved or in progress. If someone, I would recommend that no one beyond, say, upper level controls type people should close issues. If you think you've solved it, change the status to solved. That's probably more appropriate, and that way, whoever's reviewing could do a search against the solved issues, have a look themselves, and if they agree, then let them change that to closed to get rid of it.
Okay, so once they're closed, can they be reactivated as open if someone disagrees with it?
Oh, I just did that.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
yeah. Okay.
I'm not sure that there's any permission settings that prevent people from closings. I know within BIM 360, for example, only the project admins can close issues. Or no, sorry, the person that raised the issue has the ability to close the issue. Right. The person assigned the issue can't. They can only solve it. That may well be the case in Revizto too. I'm not sure on that.
So, for instance, if you had a discussion with a structural engineer saying, okay, yeah, they're going to sort something out, and you could put solved, and you could put a little note saying, as per, BGT will shift beam or put Pinot to suit, and then it's up to them to eventually close it once they've done that job.
Yep, exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Well, that was 45 minutes odd. Are there sort of questions that people would want to go through on this? I personally, I find it a very easy to use, quite intuitive bit of software. It's certainly easier than most, and it's quite a graphical interface. It is quite realistic. So anyone got anything they want to ask?
Chris, is there any options to export elements into, for example, like a 3D DWG or any other softwares?
There are some export options. IFC, I think, is your only output from here. The exe option, I believe, is like a packaged up, take me anywhere sort of version of your project. That's not what you're looking for. So I don't believe you can export from here into DWGs or other sort of 3D formats. You can, however, export these into PDFs. So the 2D sheets can get popped out to PDFs, which might be useful. But yeah, I don't believe that you can export from here. I'll look into it, but I don't believe there's native or easy functionality to let you export off to some other software.
So, and just on that, you've clicked on the 2D, which overlaid the plans onto the 3D elements and things. Or there was something you did earlier. Presumably, the project has to be set up like that. I'm just looking at the Catalina one, and it hasn't got any 2D imagery as such.
Exactly. So, it should. I mean, that's functionality that's not being utilized.
Right. Yeah.
It certainly is a very powerful tool. One of the best parts of Revizto, if you ask me. Just while we're here, remember that stamp that I created against that CCTV? It's even though I created it in the 3D world, it is now here in the 2D world.
The 2D, yeah.
And everything I did and said about that, is available to us. So, that 2D, 3D sort of crossover is very powerful here in Revizto. Yeah, we should be talking to the likes of architects as to why they're not providing this type of functionality. Base floor plans, for example, are such a good way of navigating around. These little icons that I showed you here for navigating. I mean, if we look at a slightly where do I want to go? I want to come back. Oh God, a bit laggy.
Yeah, Pete, presumably you've got a BIM coordinator that imports the Revit models and federates them in Revizto, basically. They would have to import the sheets.
We do, and
the models.
It should be set up. I mean, it should be set up that way. Well, we looked at this one here where we click on here and it shows us the 2D overlay with the with against a 2D model. We can also double click on anywhere. He says we should be able to. No, it's not going to let me. For some reason, it's not doing this, but you should be able to double click on anywhere in the model here and actually go to that location as well. Yeah, I don't know why it's not doing that right now, but it is possible.
Can I make a couple of points on the issue tracker?
You may.
In the past, on past projects, for example, ABC Schools, Stage 3, Site 6, etc. The only people that could close an issue were the administrators or the site owners of the Revizto model. And they were using that information for a coordination tracking facility to demonstrate to the client that issues were raised, addressed and closed out. So what was quite important was using the chat facility in the issue tracker to record what changes you made to resolve the problem, and also to ask questions of colleagues, appropriate colleagues.
This is what Neil's talking about here, by the way, this little chat pop-out. You can put things in here and it'll pop messages around to people as you go.
Yeah, so if somebody's assigned you an issue and you don't think it's right, you can reassign that issue to somebody else, but you should put on that chat issue saying, in that chat column saying, hey, this is isn't actually what I'm covering, that the person you've assigned it to is more appropriate, so that if the person that initially assigned the issue comes back and checks, they can see a record of why you've passed it on to somebody else. And like if you resolve a problem with a cable tray hitting the ventilation transfer duct by moving the cable tray off to the left, and it's now hitting the security camera, you could make a note in that column saying, hey, whoever's responsible for this security camera needs to look at this solution and see whether it's workable or whether we need to find some other solution. So sort of to put a final point on it, the chat column is quite a good record for illustrating to the client that a proper process has been followed in resolving problems.
Okay, good tip.
Chris, how does this work when you've got a massive model? So Link Alliance are sending QERail all of the BIM models.
You missed that bit. This model is already quite large. If we look at this, this is the entire. Oh, come on, you. This is the entire. It's got a field of view cropping thing happening here.
Oh, yeah.
But that is the entire airport precinct, and it reacts quite quickly. So you shouldn't be concerned with a QERail type project. I mean, I'm guessing it's generally only limited to the corridors and the associated buildings.
But Link Alliance doesn't issue Revizto that would have to be exported by someone into it. They are just issuing IFC and Navisworks, I think.
Yeah, we just get a BIM file in a raw format.
Navisworks will push to here. So I mean, if they're giving you Navis, you can push Navis into Revizto and off you go.
And do I need somebody who's got Chris Edwards skills to load it in, or is it just a simple thing of going into Revizto and just saying open this file from?
It's a very straightforward thing. From Revit, you define a 3D view and those 2D sheets if you want them. You know, you set up a list of things you want to publish, and it's a single button click, boom. And then after that, it's just kind of a weekly button click, you know, push the button, refresh things, off it goes. So once you're set up, it's super easy. Setting it up is easy enough. There's certainly no high skills required there.
Okay, sweet.
From Navisworks, it's basically what you see is what you get. So, you know, generally speaking, Navisworks is a fairly well filtered file already. It does rely on proper use of coordinate systems. You can fudge things if you have to, moving things around, but you certainly don't want to. You can even bring point cloud files into Revizto, and it works quite well with point cloud data, which normally kills any application.
Is Revizto hosted in the BIM 360 cloud environment, or is it?
No, they're completely separate.
And who do you have to pay for a site for a model, or how does that work?
I don't believe you pay for a site. You pay for a user license. So, you know, we have this pool of licenses at MOTS. You know, we've got quite good buying power behind those licenses, but I don't believe it's a project by project thing. It's just a user thing.
So if somebody creates a model, then they go and invite people to collaborate on that model. Is that how it works?
Yep.
And can anybody create a model?
I'll check on that. You know, I've got admin rights, so I can. I don't know, but maybe we'll get someone without admin rights to have a look. I would doubt that everyone can. I'll look into it, but I'd be quite surprised if every user can. I'd say only the admin types can. Any more for that?
No, I'm all good. Thanks for that, Chris.
All good. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
Yep. Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks. We'll chat again.
Enjoy lunch. Bye.
See you, Jose. Bye.
Thanks.
All right. Thank you.
Cheers. Bye.